Alrighty, welcome to this week's episode of Apes. We have a very great show today. We have a special guest. Give it up for Joe Crowley.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So, I heard you're the expert in oceanic studies.
I am. I actually have been studying the pelagic biome for quite some time.
Yeah?
What that is, actually, the pelagic biome, it is defined technically as any area of open water, either not near a shore or at the bottom of any body of water from a sea, lake, or an ocean. And the biome is studying kind of the ecosystem and the aquatic life that can arise from that area.
Wow, very interesting.
Precisely.
So, Joe, can you tell us where about the pelagic zone is located?
Well, the pelagic zone is located actually all over the planet, as you can see. The majority of the planet is actually covered by water in the first place, which means that the majority of the planet is actually defined as being a part of the pelagic zone. But like I said earlier, the pelagic zone is technically defined by any area of open water.
Wow. So, Joe, can you inform us a little more about the abiotic features?
Absolutely, I'm a Straddleman. The abiotic features of this specific biome are, well, because it encompasses so much of the planet, a good way to think of it is kind of like a cylinder from the very top of the water column to the very bottom. So as we go from the bottom to from the top to the bottom, you'll see a decrease in the amount of light, an increase in the amount of pressure, and also a drop in the temperature. Another feature of this biome is that it actually gets 480 centimeters of precipitation every year, which means that throughout all of the world's oceans, lakes, and rivers, the cumulative amount of precipitation that occurs is around 487 centimeters. So that's a pretty profound number.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. So, Joe, let's hear about some of the geological features.
Well, the geological features of the pelagic biome are very intriguing to me and many others around the world. The pelagic biome contains anywhere from the smallest specks of the smallest molecules of sand and broken down organic material all the way up to some of the deepest and largest trenches as well as mountains in the entire world, ranging anywhere from volcanoes to earthquakes and anything in between, which makes the geology of this pelagic biome, like I said, very intriguing. In addition, there are many different kinds of rock and soil that accumulate in different parts of the world. For example, there may be a river in China that has different kinds of sediments than a small sea in Europe or something of the like.
So, can we hear more about the biotic features?
Well, absolutely. We'll start with identifying the species diversity of the pelagic biome. Throughout all of the Earth's waters, you'll see a huge diversity between the plants and animals. Anywhere from microorganisms that get their energy from either the sun or feeding on minerals and things like that at the bottom of the ocean, all the way up to whales and sharks and some of the most intriguing and interesting animals on the entire planet.
Nice. That's cool, yeah.
All of these animals, actually, some of the typical features of them, they'll all usually have fins because they've adapted that way to get around in the water quicker. Obviously, us as humans or land animals do have a hard time because we don't have anything like fins to get us through the water.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there are all sorts of different kinds of animals and plants that can take over different parts of the ocean. Some being more dominant than others. For example, a shark would be more dominant than a small fish, and that small fish would be more dominant than a shrimp, and that shrimp more dominant than the bacteria that it's eating, and that bacteria, unfortunately being right at the bottom of the food chain, is not dominant over anything. However, the bacteria has strength in the billions, so we won't have to worry about them dying out anytime soon.
Well, that's good. So, what exactly is the value to humans of the pelagic biome?
Well, the pelagic biome offers a wealth of different things to humans. For example, first and foremost, it allows for international trade throughout every single country in the entire world. So, one product from China may be able to get to the U.S. within a week, just by using this pelagic biome to our advantage. Getting more specific, though, into the actual biological aspect of it, due to the plethora of animals and organisms that thrive in the pelagic biome, we have so much food to choose from and so many resources to be had from all of both the organic and inorganic materials that dwell in the pelagic biome.
So, were there any recent changes in the pelagic biome that you've noticed?
There have been recent changes, but depending on how you look at it, geologically speaking, a recent change may be in the last 5 to 10,000 years or 1 million years, but we'll look only back within the last 100 to 1,000 years. And some of the most significant changes that you'll see in the pelagic biome is simply a rise in the water due to glacial melt. But other than that, generally speaking, everything is kept at an equilibrium. The only other things that are worth mentioning are the somewhat overconsumption of the resources in the ocean, specifically the organic resources, meaning we are eating too many fish on this planet, and if we don't slow down, we will effectively eliminate most of the fish, if not all of the fish, in the pelagic biome.
Oh, that's scary. Okay, that's not good. So Joe, tell us about some unique features.
Well, it's funny that you actually ask about the unique features of the pelagic biome, because there's one other unique feature that I really wanted to bank on in this episode, and that key feature is hydrothermal vents. Now, hydrothermal vents are pretty cool things. A hydrothermal vent is an opening in the ocean where heated water anywhere between 150 and 300 degrees Celsius, yes, water vapor, can arise from a crack deep beneath the ocean due to geologic geologic tectonic shift.
Wow. Jeez, that sounds crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So these hydrothermal vents, can you tell us kind of where they are, where they're located?
Absolutely, Emma Stradelman. The hydrothermal vents can be located all over the ocean, but typically they are located on fault lines, as you can see in this image right here, between tectonic plates. The reason that they occur on these fault lines is because this allows for a small gap in the Earth's crust, allowing higher temperature materials from the core and the mantle to seep through, heating up this water, which then builds pressure and pushes it out these hydrothermal vents.
Wow, cool stuff. So Joe,
what?
Let's hear some key features to the hydrothermal vents.
Some key features of hydrothermal vents are as follows. Number one, a great way to think about a hydrothermal vent, if you're not following me here at all as to what the definition may be, think of it this way. A hydrothermal vent is the equivalent as a geyser happening deep in the ocean.
What?
That's all it is. It's just heated water being pressurized and then spat out a small little crack in the Earth's crust.
Oh, I see. Cool.
Now, some other key features, getting more specific into the abiotic features of this biome. The temperatures can range anywhere from 150 degrees, so very hot water, to 300 degrees, which is actually just water vapor because it's just so hot. And another thing that's really cool about them is the climate regarding, there's just not climate actually, because they occur deep in the ocean. There's actually no precipitation or evaporation or any sort of climate change at all, because all it is just one single hydrothermal vent. It could be as big as my body or the size of my head, so a specific climate can't necessarily exist for something that small. And like I said before, the location on the Earth is typically around the fault lines between tectonic plates. However, they are known to occur just about anywhere, on land or in the ocean.
Cool.
Now, segueing into a little bit more about the biotic features of this biome, what's really cool about it is the species diversity, while relatively small, ranging from 10,000 to 100,000 different kinds of organisms. It's wonderful because without the hydrothermal vents, all of the organisms that live in the ocean, with the exception of perhaps just a few thousand, would all be preserved without an impact to the food chain. What I'm trying to say is, a shrimp, for example, can feed off of different kinds of microbacteria, and that same shrimp can feed off of the microbacteria that dwell in hydrothermal vents. And very, very many fish can feed on a shrimp, which means that if a hydrothermal vent occurs, it will spur the life of other animals around, including small things like microorganisms, up to large things like shrimp, larger to fish, and then larger to even sharks or whales and things of that like. But one interesting thing about that is if we didn't have hydrothermal vents, like I said before, the food chain would be unaffected, because that shrimp, who right now is maybe feeding on these microbacteria in this hydrothermal vent, that same shrimp can eat the food from, or the microbacteria from coral or something like that, perhaps in a reef. So the food chain is still preserved.
Oh, cool.
We'll see three main kinds of organisms. You'll see plants, animals, and microbacteria. Plants you'll see very little of because they can occur very deep in the ocean, which allows for very little sunlight to come through. Thus, chloroplasts can't work as effectively. So plant life you'll see very little of, if any, unless it's at a higher elevation in the Earth's ocean. The other thing that I wanted to say was that the bacteria that live there, there's three main kinds. There's chemosynthetic bacteria, there's chemoautotrophic bacteria, and then there's archaea. All of these different bacteria, what they do is they get their energy and they survive both off of the sunlight, just a little bit, as well as the minerals and nutrients found in the water, because the water is very rich because it's coming from deep within the earth, which allows for many different kinds of sediments and different kinds of, like I said, nutrients and minerals to form inside the water, thus giving these beautiful little bacteria food to survive. And moving up from there, we'll look at animals, and like I said before, the animals, they can exist regardless of this biome, but the animals that do exist range from anywhere from shrimp to small fish, even to large tube worm, and fauna, clams, all that wonderful stuff.
Wow, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's cool. What's the hydrothermal vents value to humans?
Well, the hydrothermal vents value to humans is actually very slim, if anything, because, like I was saying before, if hydrothermal vents didn't exist, you'd still have the majority of the organisms that live in the pelagic biome existing. For example, all different manner of sharks, all different manner of fish, all different manner of organisms, with the exception of those main three bacteria and some of the specific organisms that can only feed on that bacteria. But other than that, you'll see virtually no change in the pelagic biome. Thus, it has virtually no impact on the humans.
Okay, well yeah, nice. So any changes recently with the hydrothermal vents?
Well, there was one off the southeastern coast of California that did just get a girlfriend, but other than that, the effect... Oh shoot, we're talking about recent changes. But other than that, any recent changes in this biome are very little to none. The only changes that could occur is if there was any shift in the tectonic plates, but other than that, the actual biome itself is going to be unchanged.
Oh, well that's probably a good thing.
Oh, it's...
Oh yeah!
Oh, yep.
Any unique features with the hydrothermal vents?
Nope.
I guess that concludes our show of apes. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Learned lots. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Learned a lot of things today.
Well, that's great. That's what my job. That's what my job is.
Yeah, you did a great job.